So this video will be covering the current events that have been happening in Venezuela and also what has been happening in Venezuela's borders along the Colombian town of Cucuta and along Venezuela's border with Brazil, and also in the international community with the U.S. government, the Trump administration, and with the UN's involvement in the previous coup attempt that the U.S. has imposed on Venezuela, as well as new sanctions that the U.S. has placed in January of this year. And the same rhetoric of humanitarian aid and military intervention being justified is being used in Venezuela as it has been in every other country the U.S. has invaded, such as Dominican Republic, such as Nicaragua, such as um, Haiti, Cuba, Puerto Rico, and all other countries that have fallen victim to U.S. imperialism throughout the global south. So in Venezuela, the same rhetoric has been used that the U.S. has sent an aid truck to Venezuela in claiming that it's humanitarian aid to alleviate issues that have been produced in Venezuela and their economy, as well as scarcity in medicine and food, which is a direct result of U.S. sanctions. And the Maduro administration has been accused of burning the aid in the town of Cucuta, where the aid was in the bridge between Venezuela and Colombia, that the Maduro administration has been accused of setting the aid on fire because it was burned in late February, around February 23rd. Except that videos were then released that it was actually the Guarimberos, which are the fascist opposition against the Maduro government, the supporters of the false interim president, self-proclaimed President Juan Guaido, who is the president of the National Assembly of Venezuela. And he actually has no legitimacy because he has cited 3 articles from the Venezuelan Constitution, and none of them apply to him because in order for them to apply to him, they do not apply to him either way, regardless. But even if he were to use the articles state that in order for somebody else to be named president of Venezuela, Maduro would need to be dead or in a coma, or something else would need to happen such that his position will be vacant. And even if that's the case, then the person who would be constitutionally legitimized to fill his place would be the vice president of Venezuela, not Juan Guaido, not him, that he was also a Guarimbero himself in 2014, that he recorded himself in now deleted videos participating in violent Guarimba riots. And the Guarimberos, they have also been recorded on camera that they were the ones who threw Molotov cocktails at the AIDS truck in Venezuela and in the town of Cucuta, that they threw Molotov cocktails in order to frame Maduro as mainstream media, such as other right-wing corporate media, such as Univision, which is funded by the CIA's, NGOs, and other media in the U.S. and in the West that has been stating that Maduro is the one who burned the humanitarian aid when this is actually not the case. And it was in fact the Guarimberos, and even a report from CNN that they released a clip of the video. When zoomed in, you can see a Guarimbero throwing a Molotov cocktail at the AIDS truck, which goes against their false imperialist narrative that it was the Maduro administration who burnt the aid when they did not. They simply rejected it because they believed that it was a Trojan horse in order to install Juan Guaido in the Miraflores presidential palace, and in order to use as a to spark military intervention in Venezuela and to kill Maduro, as Marco Rubio and other right-wing politicians in the U.S. have been threatening him, such as Marco Rubio, that he sent a photo. He published a photo of Gaddafi, the leader of Libya, the one who was murdered in 2011 in the 2011 intervention in Libya. And with that photo posted, the implication was that the same would happen to Maduro if he does not step down. And this also goes against the ICC, the International Court of the UN. It goes against the UN Charter. It goes against several other international laws and other regulations imposed by the UN and its organization, its factions, and also by the OAS's own charters, and many others as well. And this is in fact illegitimate, as it is by definition intervention by international law, and it should not be legitimized. And the UN recognizes Maduro as the legitimate president of Venezuela. It does not recognize Juan Guaido as the president because he is not. Maduro is, in fact, the democratically elected president of Venezuela. And Telesur also sent investigators to investigate the burnt up truck in the town of Cucuta of the USA truck that was meant to go to Venezuela. And they discovered among the ashes that they found wires, they found nails, and several other objects. Planes were discovered to have been, linked to the CIA that were flying several times between the US and Colombia and Venezuela, that they were dropping off weapons, which were uncovered by the Venezuelan military. The Bolivarian army, that they uncovered M16 US made rifles and 6 iPhones and several other weapons that were meant to go to the opposition. And these were, of course, spearheaded by Elia Abrams, that he is the coordinator, like, behind the U.S. military intervention in Venezuela, and he was appointed by Trump. And of course, Trump was going to appoint him because Abrams has experience with using humanitarian aid as a Trojan horse for humanitarian intervention, such as in the Iran-Contra scandal in Nicaragua, that Elia Abrams was also behind that, and it was uncovered that he had sent weapons smuggled in packages of medicine aid that was meant to go to Nicaragua. And these weapons were meant to go to the Contras, the right-wing Contra groups that were going to try to topple the democratically elected Sandinista government that is leftist. That was one scandal. And the same was done in Syria in 2011, when the US has sent weapons, as it's been doing for years, not only in 2011 but also way beyond that, that has been sending weapons to the right-wing rebel groups and jihadist affiliates of Al Qaeda and other terrorist groups in Syria that wanted to topple the Assad government. And the same that has been happening in Libya, when NATO, the US, and its allies funded the rebel groups that ended up killing Gaddafi, and throughout the global south. And these were all cases in which so-called humanitarian aid was used in order to justify military intervention, and then it turned out that this aid was in fact weapons. And even though some of the aid is actual food and medicine, it is still being used as a political weapon to justify and legitimize humanity.